Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
Hi, Calvin. I was born on November 8th, 1739, in Norfolk, in the colony of Virginia. My given name was Samuel Ross Mason, though over the years my surname was sometimes spelled as Meeson. Long before the rivers ran red with my reputation, I was just a boy born into a distinguished Virginia family.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
I was raised in what is now Charlestown, West Virginia, which was part of Virginia back then. My father was Thomas Mason, and my mother was Mary Newton. We were a well-connected frontier family, and my grandfather, George Mason, actually served in the House of Burgesses. Growing up on the edges of the colonies meant life was strict, hardworking, and deeply rooted in the rugged, unforgiving nature of the early American frontier.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
Most folks during my days in the militia just called me Captain Mason or Squire Mason. But as my operations turned criminal, the law and the papers labeled me Mason of the Woods or Wolfman. They even sometimes confused me with an alias like Bully Wilson. Those names were meant to sound menacing, painting me as a wild creature of the untamed wilderness.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
I was a restless, aggressive youth who preferred the open woods to a quiet schoolroom. Formal schooling wasn't a priority on the frontier, so I didn't spend many years behind a desk. Instead, I learned how to track, hunt, and handle weapons, which served me well when I served under Colonel George Washington at Fort Necessity in 1754 during the French and Indian War, and later as a captain of the Ohio County Militia during the American Revolution.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
After the Revolutionary War, I was a respected man. I owned a 500-acre farm in Pennsylvania, was elected Justice of the Peace, and was even named an associate judge. But by 1784, I found myself heavily indebted and facing constant accusations of being a thief. My farm was eventually sold at a sheriff's sale, and I made the fateful decision to pack up and head into Kentucky. At the time, it felt like a simple attempt to escape my debts and start over. But moving further west plunged me straight into a life of lawlessness.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
My very first interaction with the law happened back in the 1750s, when I was just a teenager in Frederick County, Virginia. I let my greed get the better of me and stole some horses belonging to a Colonel John L. Height. His pursuers tracked me down, and during the capture, I was actually shot and wounded. That first arrest and the pain of that bullet was my introduction to the consequences of crossing the law, though clearly, it didn't keep me straight for long.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It was in the late 1790s when I established my headquarters at Cave-In Rock on the Illinois shore of the Ohio River. We would warmly welcome passing riverboat travelers to rest and eat, acting like hospitable hosts, while my men secretly checked their flatboats for valuables. Once they set off the next day, we would ambush and rob them around the river's bend. When territorial governors started putting massive bounties on my head and naming the Mason Gang as the terror of the rivers, I knew my name had become a permanent part of frontier history.
Did fame make you more dangerous, or did it simply expose who you already were?
The notoriety didn't change me, but the sheer lack of legal authority on the frontier exposed the ruthless opportunist I had become. We graduated from luring crews to shore with staged distress signals to actively running vessels aground and luring them in with female accomplices. The wilderness didn't make me dangerous, it just gave me an unmonitored canvas to expand my operations from river piracy to highway robbery along the Natchez Trace.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
I was ultimately betrayed by the very outlaws I ran with. I made the mistake of harboring the notorious Hart brothers, America's first serial killers, at Cave-In Rock. Though my gang was ruthless, the Harps were so brutally sadistic, throwing naked travelers off bluffs, that we eventually kicked them out. But Little Harp, going by the name John Sutton, and another associate named James May, later tracked me down purely out of greed to collect the massive $2,500 bounty the governor placed on my head.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People are always surprised to learn that before I was a pirate, I was a certified war hero. During the Revolution, while commanding Fort Henry, my company was ambushed by Native Americans. Every single one of my 14 men perished except for me. I survived by hiding behind a log while severely wounded, recovering to command the fort for 2 more years. It's a strange twist that a man who bled to defend the frontier ended up becoming its greatest threat.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
The public never understood that I was trying to navigate 2 completely different legal systems. I eventually settled my family in Spanish Louisiana to look like an ordinary farmer, while slipping across the border into American territory to conduct my robberies. Managing a family, playing the part of a legitimate settler to Spanish officials, and constantly evading bounty hunters like the exterminators who drove us out of Cave-In Rock was an exhausting, high-stakes game.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
My definitive rivalry was against the vigilante bounty hunters and lawmen of the frontier, specifically Captain Young of Mercer County, Kentucky, who led the exterminators. They relentlessly pursued my gang, eventually forcing us to abandon our stronghold at Cave-In Rock and look for new territory further downriver.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
Privately, I was fighting the constant, suffocating weight of my financial ruin. My descent into piracy wasn't born out of a grand desire to be a villain. It started because I was deeply in debt in Pennsylvania and couldn't see any honest way out. I spent my later years using crime to secure financial freedom for my wife and 8 children so I could leave them a legacy instead of a debt.
What was your darkest moment? And was there ever a time you wanted to walk away from it all?
The darkest moment was in early 1803, when Spanish officials finally caught up to me and my gang at the Little Prairie settlement in southeastern Missouri. They dragged us to New Madrid for a 3-day hearing to determine if I was a river pirate. I tried desperately to look like a simple, honest farmer and claimed my enemies were spreading lies, but they didn't buy it. They ordered us to be transferred to New Orleans to be handed over to the American authorities, and I knew my freedom was completely gone.
What truth was hardest to escape when you were alone at night?
The hardest truth to escape was that my past as an honorable militia captain and a justice of the peace was completely dead. Alone at night, knowing that my own sons were entangled in my criminal enterprise and that the honest life I tried to project in Spanish territory was a complete sham, was a bitter pill to swallow.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
I never actually made it to an American courtroom for a final trial. While we were being transported up the Mississippi River to be delivered to the Americans, 2 of my gang members, John Sutton and James May, and I, staged a desperate escape, overpowering our guards. During the chaotic scramble to get away, I was shot in the head. I survived the initial wound, but my criminal career ended right there on the riverbank.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I passed away in 1803 along the Mississippi River in the Mississippi Territory. My life came to a violent end when my disgruntled followers, John Sutton and James May, either waited for me to succumb to my escape wound or struck me with a tomahawk to claim my bounty. They decapitated me, rolled my head in blue clay to preserve it from rotting, and carried it in a canoe to the authorities in Natchez.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
My downfall was caused by my own greed and my terrible judgment in allies. I thought I could command total loyalty from desperate, cold-blooded outlaws, but the staggering price the government placed on my head proved to be a temptation my own men couldn't resist. My trust in wolves is what ultimately cost me my life.
What past regrets did you carry with you to the end? If you could erase one decision from your life, would you? Or was it necessary to become who you were?
I regretted letting my debts drive me out of respectable society. If I could erase the decision to leave Pennsylvania and turn to piracy, I would gladly choose to remain Squire Mason, a respected judge. Turning to crime didn't save my family from hardship. It just ensured that my life ended in a bloody betrayal on a lonely riverbank.
What scared you more? Getting caught, losing power, or being forgotten?
Losing my freedom and being locked in an American cage terrified me the most, which is why I risked everything to overpower the guards and escape during that river transport. I lived my life as a king of the frontier rivers, and the thought of spending my remaining days in chains was completely unacceptable.
When you look back now, do you see yourself as the villain, the hero, or something in between?
History books and the people of the Ohio Valley firmly record me as a ruthless villain and a treacherous river pirate. I started out as a patriot and a defender of the frontier, but I allowed financial ruin to transform me into a predator. I am a tragic example of a good man who let the darkness of the wilderness consume him entirely.
Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
Only this. Those who betrayed me didn't get their payout. When Sutton and May brought my head to Natchez, the law recognized them as part of my gang, arrested them, and hanged them both on the gallows field in 1804. Crime on the frontier offers a short reign and a brutal end. Keep your hands clean, Calvin.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.